Hello everyone, I'm Chloe Johnson and welcome to this Fresh Business Thinking webinar series, Lockdown Learning for Businesses, supported by BT. BT Skills for Tomorrow aims to empower businesses and their employees with the digital skills to help grow their business. The Skills for Tomorrow website includes free learning content that small businesses and their employees can access at any time, on topics such as promoting your business with online advertising, making sure your customers can find you online, and much more. To find out more, you can click on the link in the comments. Coronavirus is continuing to be a challenge for small businesses and entrepreneurs across the UK. The outbreak leaves an overwhelming uncertainty into the future for business owners. But this is a time when, as a business community, we need to come together and support one another. And we're lucky enough to work with organisations and individuals who are passionate about supporting entrepreneurs during this difficult time. One of those is our speaker today, Matryona Mbe, founder of Little Venice Cake Company, qualified food scientist, consultant, author and speaker. She is described as the couture queen thanks to her multi-award-winning designs and A-list clientele. And among her many accolades includes an MBE for services to the catering industry. Today, Mich will share examples of her experiences that can give you the confidence, resilience and practical approach to coping with the unexpected. Mich will be talking for around 40 minutes and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can leave them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and we'll do our best to get to them later on in the session. That's all from me for now and I'll pass over to you, Mich.
Thank you very much and a very warm welcome to you this afternoon. It is my absolute pleasure to be here. Firstly, thank you to Chloe, to the Fresh Business Thinking team, for GB Entrepreneurs and for BT for this webinar opportunity. It's an extraordinary time for so many people and it's amazing to see how people are adapting to the opportunities that are presenting them. And I think that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about this afternoon is how well and how efficiently we can adapt to new scenarios. Furloughing, social distancing, self-isolating, working from home, lockdown, all these are now new and common phrases, and we've had to learn how to adapt to those. But how efficiently we can do this is something I'm going to help you, hopefully give you some tips and tools today to help you adapt and cope brilliantly with all those curveballs that come your way. Now, I can't pretend to have all the answers. I can give you some practical advice that I've gained over my 20 years as the founder and director of, as Chloe has said, London's Little Venice Cake Company. But also I've thought about some other things that as a mother, a wife, a friend, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, somebody who has a role in the community, as a business entrepreneur, as a somebody who's inspired by life, I've tried to think about all the different ways and things that I can think of that can help you in different scenarios so that you can apply these to your everyday life to help you become a more capable and copeable person. Now, over the time that we've been running Little Venice Cake Company, I have made over 20,000 celebrity celebration cakes. These have been for all occasions, from high-profile clients, and our deadlines have been non-negotiable. And I think that's one of the key things that I've learned during my time is that as a food scientist, I tend to be very analytical. And it means that I tend to think about the what ifs, the worst case scenarios, what could happen, what can I do to avoid something happening, to preempt so much of what could go wrong to prevent it from happening in the first place. And it's some of these tips that I'm going to share with you today. Now, I'm used to giving presentations where it involves a live demonstration so that I can be working on a cake practically at the time that I am talking so that I can deliver what I like to call educational entertainment. So, I mean, it would have been lovely for me to be doing this from the comfort of my own kitchen this afternoon where I had something practical to work on. So by giving you my sort of undivided, or I have your, thank you, undivided attention this afternoon, to please bear with me. It is me. I put some props out so that you have some other far prettier things to look at. But hopefully that this practical demonstration, that this talk will give you some key advice. So we have had many curveballs over our time at Little Venice Cake Company, some definitely more curved than others. And I'm going to have to say the occasional bludger. And those of you who are into your Harry Potter will know exactly what that means. Now, a curveball is something that is unexpected, surprising, or disruptive. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a curveball is always going to bring negativity. I know that certainly at this time during the coronavirus, we've had a lot of concerned negative impact on our businesses and our lives. But I want to talk about the curveball in general, which is all about expecting the unexpected. I mean, I would often say when we would start the week at Little Venice Cake Company, our weeks may start with a plan, but quite quickly a scenario would happen which would turn it on a dime, and we'd end up finishing the week doing something completely differently. And it's how effectively we learn to adapt that I want to share with you. And effectively means how quickly and how well. So points to cope with a curveball. I'm going to give you some advice and top tips beforehand so that once the curveball comes, we're armed. Forewarned is forearmed. So these series of points will hopefully help you reassess your mindset with all of your areas of life. Now that's emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because when you sort of look at the person, you need to work as a whole to ensure that all areas are taken care of. You can't just focus on one individually. So for your business to cope with the curveball, you need to be streamlined, organized, successful, and directional. All of those sort of points I think are key in order that when we cope well, we can have all of those areas lined up. In a social environment, I want you to be able to cope with other people, how to be analytical, how to look at situations, but also how to be empathetic. For yourself personally, how to be the best person, the best version of yourself, for your family, and for your friends. As a scientist, I tend to analyze everything quite logically and methodically. I always try to look at the other viewpoints that come into a situation, so I can try and assess everybody's understanding and viewpoint, so that then I can deliver it back in a way that helps a whole team understand that other people may be feeling and thinking things that are very differently. There are different people in the world and different people in business and different people that you work with, and all of these people's personalities are required in order to have a successful flow. And these people tend to be emotional or reflective or supportive or directive. And when you sort of analyze each of those individual characteristics, you have the directive people, who are the real problem solvers, the ones who do tend to be quite analytical, can sort of step back and look at a situation and apply themselves directively. You have the supportive people, who will absolutely follow through and be the key people who you can rely on to help deliver those scenarios. The reflective will be the real sort of academia, the academic people, who can really sort of understand and analyze, but can maybe detach themselves from the emotional. And then you have the emotive people, and we've had many of these in my time. And the emotive people are the ones who tend to be, I've had some lovely teams who at Little Venice, who are the ones who are very self-effacing, wonderful at sort of interacting with clients, able to give lots of warmth and generosity that come through, but sometimes tend to react quite quickly in a situation without first thinking about responding. And that's something I want to share with you a little bit later on. So one of the first things that you need to understand, I think, or think about for yourself and for your businesses, is to know your brand values and your brand strategy. And that doesn't just apply to your business, but also applies to yourself personally. So think about the kind of person you are and the kind of business you are. Identify what your brand values are. And we did this quite early on at Little Venice Cake Company, which were to have sort of unrivaled prestige, to be completely bespoke. We wanted to focus on our intricate hand craftsmanship, to be totally indulgent and have a refined opulence. Those were our key brand values. By identifying those early on, and then by yourself, if you want to be an empathetic, kind, human-natured, generous, organized person, identify those brand values, write them down, keep them close, and refer to them often, because it will help to just really reaffirm everything that you're doing. And then every time you sort of think about things, or you're addressed or presented with a situation, you'll be able to respond according, knowing that you have those brand values identified. Be prepared to amend them if the situations change, and remember to swim your own race. Be in competition with yourself. I think that's one of the key things that we've learned is, you can spend a lot of time, certainly at the moment, looking at what everybody else is doing, especially since social media has sort of thrown up its, so many different platforms. And I think it quite often can feel as though everybody else is having a far greater or better or more successful time than you, which is absolutely not the case. So it's important to identify your true values and swim your own race. One of the key things we've always done at Little Venice Cake Company is write down our business plan, business model at the beginning of every year. Look at where we are and what we've achieved and what we hope to achieve. And one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur, and hopefully many of you will find this as well, is that when you write down what you hope to achieve in the next year, entrepreneurs generally tend to overestimate. You want to achieve a lot more than you sometimes can get through. And that's quite often through no fault of your own. You tend to find that you have an impetus and not everybody else works at the same intensity or speed as yourself. But that entrepreneurs generally over a longer period of time tend to underestimate their achievements. So when you look back retrospectively, you tend to find that you achieve a lot more than maybe you at first thought you might do. And one of the key pieces of advice that I had from very early on in my career is do the right thing and the right things will happen. Always try and live and die by your own principles and have your own integrity. And that means doing the right thing, even when no one else is watching. So to ensure that you have those standards, that you sort of stick to them so that you are every day the person that you want to be. So first things first, in life, expect the unexpected. All life is about change. Change will and must happen. In order for the world to turn, change will happen. So when you're in the status quo, when you think it's the status quo, be aware that the unexpected should be expected. Life is about yin and yang, about up and down, the seesaw, the black and white, and it's learning to keep the rough with the smooth and how to keep everything on a more even keel. Certainly since I've been running Little Venice Cake Company, which we're celebrating our 21st anniversary this year, I've known that, or I've discovered that the highs are higher. You know, when you have a high, when it's your own business and you've put your blood, sweat and tears into it, the highs are high and the lows are low. And it's learning to keep everything on that even keel. You know, we've had lots of times when situations have come along. I mean, I had one fairly recently where we've signed a new a franchise or license operation to open the first Little Venice Cake Company shop and atelier as part of Atlantis the Royal with the hotel in Dubai on the Palm. Amazing opportunity, really excited. And as we signed the contract, I received two pieces of congratulations. One from my bank. You know you're doing something right when the bank sends you a card to say congratulations and a magnum of champagne. And one from my accountant saying congratulations. And that champagne is still unopened, because it's one thing to have these things, but the cold hard reality is that yes, these great things come along, don't celebrate too early, don't celebrate too soon, wait until the money's in the bank, till you've been open, till it's been successful, and then I think you can start to celebrate. So we've learned, you know, along the way to just sort of ride those waves on a slightly more even keel. Now, one of the main areas that you can sort of adapt to or look at for all areas of your life is the CIA. And I'm not talking about the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm talking about control, influence, accept. And I'm sure many of you must have all thought about this or heard this maybe on occasion. But control, influence, accept. This is all about risk assessment and preemptiveness or preempting. So thinking about things that could happen beforehand, looking at a situation and working out whether it's something you can control, whether it's something you can influence, or whether it's something you have to accept. When it comes to accepting, don't waste emotional energy. Don't waste emotional energy thinking about the, oh, if only, if it had, what it's now got, it's gone, it's done, and wasting emotional energy on it is not going to be productive. Things that you can control are where you should be sort of thinking about applying your energy and your focus, because you can control them. And this generally means that you are in charge, you are responsible. And these are things that in business, it's all about where they can be timetabled, or they can be measured, they can be programmed, and they're certain. The more we control, the more we can control, the more we feel in control, which helps us cope better. And a lot of being able to cope when a curveball comes is feeling in control. So when you're controlling things, you are responsible. It's just yourself. So you only have yourself to rely on. When it comes to influencing, so this is where you have a sort of a growth mindset, the creative opportunities. This is where you can sort of put all the feelers out and work with others. So you can do all you can to line things up. And you are in somewhat responsible, but you're also having to rely on others. And this is the influencing part. It's where you have the most growth and opportunity to sort of develop and grow the business. You lead the horse to water, you can't make it drink. And then there's the acceptance. And in life, you know, a lot of what we're doing at the moment, it's that que sera, sera. It's, you know, lockdown, no schools, the furloughing, higher taxes are coming, the social distancing, the longer queues, all of that. The status quo has changed and we have to accept that. But it's once that path has changed, it's how we adapt it, how we can quickly we can change and adapt to that, is how well you will succeed as an entrepreneur in life, in business, moving forward. So control, influence, accept. And I think if you keep that little mantra with you on a daily basis, you'll be able to start analyzing different areas of your life to see, can I control this? If you can, good. Can I influence this? If you can, do as much as you can. Do I have to accept this? The answer is yes, but how well can I adapt to that? So moving on, it's important that we think about our mind, our body, our spirit. You know, all areas of life need to be addressed. And for me, that's making sure that every day you're thinking about these different areas, that you dress accordingly. You know, when you get up for every day, it's get up at a good time, set a timetable, make sure that you follow that similar routine and structure on a daily basis. Routine and structure is so key to helping you cope with all areas of life and adaptability. Have a structure throughout the day, have that timetable, because as we all know, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. And I tend to sort of split my day into three, so that I have the mind, the body, the spirit throughout there. The delayed gratification is key, that you do the things you have to do before you do the things you want to do. But make sure you do have those little carrots in there to look forward to at the end of every day or every week as necessary. You know, whether it's a nice bath, a little bit of internet shopping, a glass of wine, you know, celebrate and embrace the little things throughout the day, week, month, in order that you are having that delayed gratification, the rewards for having put in the hard work. For the mind, for me, this is all about, you know, this is where the mental business element is. Explore options for growth and development and enhancement. What I can do that is new or enhances and grows my business. And don't be afraid to put time into your calendar for creative thinking. I think that's really key as an entrepreneur. You know, we tend to think that if we're not at our desks and doing work and holding meetings, we're not busy. If you have time to allow the creative thoughts to flow, I think is a really important way and constructive way to let opportunities flow that you can explore, consider, analyze, refine, and then put into practice. Make sure that you do something for your body every day. Now, this is, you know, a good form of exercise, making sure that you're eating the right things, drinking the right things, and doing physical exercise and elements in that. And tackle your mountains and the tougher challenges at the early part of the day, when your resolve is at its greatest, your energy levels are at their greatest. And once you've done them, you've achieved them, that no one can take away from you. And then finally, do something for your spirit. You know, this is where the creative sort of side of your body comes in, the creative arts, whether it's playing or listening to music, musical instruments. You could even watch Britain's Best Bakery on Prime Video. This is the series that I made where we explored so many different bakeries around the British Isles. And what's lovely is, well, we can't get out and travel and visit now. Find new things that are available to you that gives you sort of lots of pleasure, so that you are doing something for your mind, your body, and your spirit. One of my key mantras in life is, no minute gone comes ever back again. Take heed and see ye nothing do in vain. I was given this on a card when I was, oh gosh, you know, barely early teenage years. And it's actually the quote that's on the Great Marlborough Clock. Now, I never knew where the Great Marlborough Clock was. It was only when I was standing in London, right outside Liberty, the door on the corner, just before Christmas, and the clock dialed, because I was waiting for the store to open, looked up, and I was standing on Great Marlborough Street, and there was the Great Marlborough Clock. And this is where the quote is, and it is, take heed, so no minute gone comes ever back again. Take heed and see ye nothing do in vain. And I'll say it again, because again, it's something that I tend to say to myself on a daily basis, and is the underlying, underpinning element of my days, which is that time wasting is the biggest waste of time. And I tend to want to, you know, ensure that I fulfill as much as I can in each of my 24-hour days. You know, lots of people say to me, gosh, I don't know how you do so much, or I don't know how you pack it all in, or all the things that you do. Well, everybody has 24 hours in a day, and it's how you choose to and what you choose to do with them that makes you who you are. I learned quite early on, well, in fact, I'm going to say this probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I made it a New Year's resolution, the art of non-procrastination. It's exhausting sometimes, but rather than always thinking about things that you should be doing, is when you see that they need doing, do them straight away. And one of the key things that I can suggest that you start to think about for yourself is create a to-do list, but change it maybe now for a productive list. How can I be productive today? How can I be productive tomorrow? Write it down either the night before you go to sleep or first thing when you get up in the morning. And writing down your lists will help you, because you don't have to spend energy then having to try and remember to think about them. They're written down and you can just start ticking them off. And my aim has always been to try and tick more off my to-do list than I write on my to-do list every day. But the point is, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. Get your ducks in a row for coming out the other side. And the idea is that you want to go to bed every day achieving something that nobody can take away from you. And for me, on a daily basis, that certainly includes things like exercise. Once I've gone for a run or I've done my workout or whatever, that's exercise. That's a tick. Nobody can take that away from me. It could be baking a cake, although somebody might want to take that away from you. But it's achieving something that you've put in some creative thought, some hard work, or you've invested your time and energy into something. Nobody can take it away from you. I always feel as though it's very important to be purposeful, to be productive, and to be useful. I think about how you can be both productive and useful on a daily basis. At the moment, we've got family, both children and husbands, all working from home. How quickly can we adapt and embrace that new routine and this new working environment? And, you can sort of think about, the times when, but it's all about adapting and ensuring that everybody's road is nice and smooth and you're doing the best you can for everybody so that their worlds are sort of as seamless as they can be. This is a great opportunity during the lockdown to learn a new skill. It's all about assurance, mindfulness. When you've achieved something, the endorphins flow, the creative skills, endorphins, and you feel happy. And for me, I published my new book, don't disguise, emphasize, a week before lockdown. I mean, fantastic that we had this amazing new book all about everyday bakes to showstopper cakes that I've been working on, where, I've been teaching for the last 15, 20 years. And what I find most wonderful about having and hosting classes is the improvement you see in people's self-confidence over time. People can come into the start of a class, and I tend not to show them what we're going to be creating. I will show them at the, it'll only sort of unfold as we go through the class. And the beauty there is that there's no intimidation and there's no worry and concern for people. They're literally doing one bite at a time. And I often sort of, think about this, and it's looking at, if you can just do this next step, there's nothing difficult or you can't manage there. Takes you on to the next step. Nothing you can't, takes you on, and it's just tackling that one step at a time. And in Everyday Bakes to Showstopper Cakes, I give bakers and the recipes for creating the most delicious bakes that you can enjoy any day, every day. And it's mastering those techniques to give you the confidence to then, with a few simple steps, ramp those up to create wonderful showstoppers. Now, the idea and the premise behind this book was such that it would build people's self-confidence, their mindfulness, they would enjoy baking, they'd learn new skills, increase their self-awareness. But imagine publishing this a week before lockdown, where suddenly the warehouses are closed, people couldn't get hold of the book, and people were, the book is intended for people to create recipes to celebrate for special occasions, and suddenly we're told not to socialize. So, how have we adapted to that? We've had some terrific press. My publishing team at Quarto have worked amazingly well to get press through all different publications. And the idea is that I've now created some videos on the back of this that are available on my website to show people how to enjoy their baking and to have that love of baking. I should point out that Waitrose have featured the book as their cookery book of the month. So if you are able to get into Waitrose to do your grocery shopping, you can pick up a copy. But baking is a wonderful craft skill for all. It's a life skill. It brings so much joy to those who make and bake, those to receive the cakes and bakes, and those to share, because it's a real bringing together a community. And I think at times like this, that's really important. There have been lots of new tutorials online, not just in baking, but so many different things, whether you want to sort of understand, more webinars like this, and the whole team have put together so many different tutorials that you can think about or join in on to over the coming weeks, different webinars to learn more skills. And knowledge is power. The more information you have, the more you can make the right decisions. Take this time to update your own websites, your social media platform, and look at different collaborations that you may like to consider when we come out of this lockdown, you know, who you can work with, what opportunities you have. I'm going to share some stories with you in a little while of some of the collaborations that we've had. And it's important to remember that it's not what you do. It is important, but it's what you do that defines you, not necessarily who you are. The art of happiness. How can we be happy during a time when we're, you know, facing situations like this or curveballs come along? And the key is to be grateful for what you have and be optimistic about the situation as much as you can. You know, a situation is often can feel quite dark and quite black, and you sort of think about things, but try and look at for the things that what you are thankful for, and take time to quantify these. You know, I tend to sort of do this at the end of the day when I go to bed and I'm, you know, just having some quiet time. I think about, you know, it really is that kind of count your blessings, count the things, look at the things that have gone well, that are going right, that you're thankful for, that you're grateful for, and look at the things that you can be optimistic about. You know, take time to smell the roses, be positive, focus on what you have, not what you have not. So how can the you of today help the you of tomorrow? And this is something that I think if you can sort of put this into your day, can be really helpful, particularly at this time, being prepared for coping with the curveball, is imagine the you of today, and imagine the you of tomorrow. You of tomorrow comes into a situation where you think, oh, if only there was somebody who had done this for me or prepared that for me, or I'd got that. How can the you of today be helpful be your own PA, the you of tomorrow? You know, and in a situation like this, it's just giving you the opportunity to be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday, and allow yourself to be and aim to be a better version of yourself tomorrow. It's a coping mechanism, and one of the things that I've done during this time is it's all about getting ducks in rows, getting things prepped and sorted and planned. You know, it's not leaving anything done today that you for tomorrow. You've done it today, but it's also getting ahead and it's writing down all those sort of government usernames, passwords, numbers, telephone numbers. If you were to get hold of, if you wanted to get a list of a to-do, you know, people, and getting it all done today. You know, one of the things that we had at Little Venice Cake Company is because we, you know, we never had the opportunity to miss a deadline. You know, we were sending cakes out, and you can't say to somebody, "Oops, sorry, it's not ready. I'll do it tomorrow." So we would have a list of numbers. We would have a florists. We would have our first aid kits. We would have, you know, our preemptive. It's like getting ahead. It's like, what might I need for tomorrow that I don't have, that I could do to get ahead? And it's trying to sort of be that person who's a little bit more forward thinking. And whilst we have a little bit more time to do that, just think about how you can be a little bit more helpful for your tomorrow person as you are today. A place for everything, and everything in its place. For those of us, or those of you who are also parents as well as entrepreneurs as well as business people, I find this is something I'm often saying to my children, is that, you know, quite often people spend time hunting for things because they've not packed them where they need to be. So make sure that you have a place for everything, and have everything in its place, and take this time now to ensure that that's the case, because you spend less time then looking for things. It's already there. It gives you more order, structure, control, makes you mindful, and it means that you'll have the right tools to get up the mountain. In this time of crisis, take time to help others. I know that it sounds, you know, a lot about, oh, charity begins at home, and helping, or help yourselves and get yourself sorted first. But, you know, helping others and taking time out. We are a nation that likes to, and generally are very, very helpful and considerate and kind. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel good. But also by helping the more vulnerable, improves your self-respect, your role in the community, your sense of involvement. And it can be that time where you have, whether it's helpful conversation, keeping in contact, but improves your mindfulness and makes you sort of more content and happy. I know that, you know, I'm missing out. I work with the team up in Scotland, the Scottish Bakers, and I host their awards ceremony and conference. And it was due to be last weekend, where we successfully sort of applaud all of those bakers who've worked so hard throughout the year. And we host our conference for the members, and we hand out awards for those high achievers. And I wasn't able to obviously get there last week. We weren't able to have the conference and awards ceremony. But these key workers, these bakers, are working their socks off to ensure that they can still deliver fresh baked goods daily, reaching every part of the community. And I think that that's what's great, is that in this time of crisis, in this time where we're having to deal with our curveballs, there are people who will actively step up to the plate. And I think it's important that if we can, we take time to help others. There is no fast track to experience. I've often said this in business, you know, and you need to decide whether you are a sinker or a swimmer. And it's an opportunity to really sort the wheat from the chaff. But one of the things that I've found as an entrepreneur, and I'll share this with you, is that however you're feeling, you are not alone. You're not the first person to feel this. You won't be the last. It has been seen before, and you are definitely not alone. You know, being an entrepreneur can be and feel quite lonely, because you feel as though the buck stops here. You know, it's at the top of the tree. And it's very true to say that a problem shared is a problem halved. I'm part of the Walpole community, which is all about companies and businesses that promote British premium luxury. And it's when I was first awarded the Walpole brand of tomorrow, we became a brand of tomorrow, that I was assigned 2 mentors. And the first of them would say to me, you know, would give me lots of practical advice. And I think this is key, is find some mentors who've had experience, who can really give you some, come in and just not necessarily give you know, business so much advice as just practical advice to you, supportive, emotional support. And they would say, you know, you're not alone. What you're going through and what you see is all been done a million times before. And that, yes, it can be lonely being at the top of the tree. But to realize that you are no different to what everyone else is feeling. And it's that sort of strength and understanding of realizing that you're not going through this alone. And I think that's what's wonderful about having these communities, is that you can share these and your feelings and your thoughts with others, and take comfort from knowing that you're not alone. I've said about taking time to smell the roses. And by using these sort of, you know, this no fast track to experience, every time you go through a situation and you adapt to it and you evolve, you tuck those in your armory, and you suddenly start to feel that every time you approach a new curveball, or something else comes, a situation comes along, you can call upon something in your repertoire that once you've been able to deal with something, it becomes your new yardstick. And once you've done that, you can kind of do anything. So, you know, don't underestimate the power of experience and how you can then use that moving forward. Be prepared to learn from history in a time of calm and status quo. So when situations are running smoothly and everything's going well, enjoy it, make the most of it. And you may have heard the phrase, you know, fix the roof while the sun shines. And it's, you know, we've often had our disaster recovery program put in place, our crisis management program put in place at a time when there isn't a crisis, so that if the worst case scenario were to happen, could I cope? And I think that's one of the key things, is look at yourself and say, what if this were to happen? What's the worst that could happen? Be your own devil's advocate. You know, so if when a situation arises, what's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And then what's the realistic scenario, which is generally somewhere in between. And when you look at the worst case scenario, you say, okay, so if this is the worst case scenario, what would I do? How would I cope? Could I cope? If it's the best case scenario, what could happen? How would I cope? Could I cope? And then the realistic scenario, what could happen? Could I cope? How would I cope? And when you start to look at that for your situations, the more that come along, the more adept you are at being able to cope with your curveball. Learn from one curveball to be prepared for the next. So I've given you lots of tips and pointers there on how to cope, how to prepare, how to be prepared, ready for when, you know, your curveball decides to come along. And let's say the arrival of the curveball comes, and it's the negative one, it's the disruptive one, it's the one that we're maybe all beginning to feel, or we are feeling right now. So it is negative, has negative impact. It brings worry, it brings stress, it brings anxiety. And there are 2 areas here. Immediately we react and we respond. And then there's the desperate times call for desperate measures. And I'm going to look at both these 2 sections separately. So the first one is react versus respond. And this will really depend on, once somebody's explained it to you or highlighted it to you, hopefully it will give you the tools to be able to manage this area of the business better and your life. So a situation occurs. Do you respond or do you react? A reaction tends to be emotional, irrational, hurried, rushed. You might shout, it's impulsive, I didn't think, I haven't thought this through. You know, somebody will say something or something will happen and you will react straight away. And, you know, you hear reporters saying, oh, what was his first reaction, or his first reaction, or their first reaction was. But now think about a response. So you have a situation that happens, take a breath, think about it. A response is calculated, is measured, is considered. It's informed, it's reassured, it's well thought out. You think before you speak, you've thought about it, you've looked at the what if scenario, you've worked out the best and worst and likely, as we've talked about, you've reflected, and then you're ready to move. And you hear about, you know, people talking about first responders. The government is giving us its response, or the government will respond. And I think that's the difference, is once you understand the difference between reacting and responding, you can use this in all areas of your life to ensure that you are a more calculated, measured, considered person, and give that kind of approach. Reflect first before just jumping in. Take time to think first. And at this time, it's certainly important to think of, you know, that desperate times do call for desperate measures. You know, quite often in a situation, if you can solve one, you can solve them all. And it's looking for that key thing that you can change that will make a big difference to the business. One of the things that you can think about is reducing your liability to increase your flexibility wherever you can, and be prepared to adapt your business model. Remember that one model does not fit all. And the brutal reality is that, you know, you need to sort of think about what is the cold hard cash in the bank after tax, you know, and that's kind of what's driving many people's businesses along at the moment. And you have to look at what is key at this moment in time. You know, we've had, gosh, negative curveballs, you know, all the curveballs that have come that have along the way. You know, there was a time when I was meant to be in Italy and to do a show, a live demonstration show for a day, cake show, and arrived at the airport and in good time, hand luggage, and then my plane was delayed. So I'm sitting in the business class lounge waiting for the flight, and said it was delayed. So half an hour before the scheduled delayed time, I go to check and it says, oh, final call. And I'm thinking, what? And the plane was delayed, but then brought back on time. And by the time I got to the gate, the plane was pulling back, and suddenly I was left without a flight to get to where I was going. And I had to respond to that situation. I had to look at getting a hotel for the night, because that was the last flight out, how I could get a flight out the following morning, informing my team over here that I was not going, informing the team that was expecting me in Italy that I was going to be delayed, making sure that somebody could stand in for my earlier class, that I could then take their class. So it's getting that sort of whole chain reaction into place, but doing it measured, calculated, and calm, rather than just sort of shooting from the hip, thinking about it all the way through and then putting the plan into place. A problem shared is a problem halved. We've talked about having, you know, this sort of two heads being better than one. And when you're faced with a situation, as I often say with my team, is look, just take time, just go for a walk, think about all the different scenarios, take time to think, explore, consider, and then respond. Now, you may feel as though when a curveball comes, that you are absolutely at rock bottom. And I would say that no matter how bad it seems, it could always be worse. Time will pass, and you know, at that moment in time when you really do feel as though you're at your lowest ebb, think back, you know, just take a step, realize that time will pass. And a key piece of advice here is, you know, you might look as though you've got this huge mountain to climb in front of you, and make sure you've got the right tools to do that. Or it may feel like, you know, another one of my favorite is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one mouthful at a time. So just look very carefully at the small steps that you can make, because each small step, those marginal gains, that growth mindset will allow you to sort of start developing to become that, and just taking those small steps to move forward. Remember, you can only say that you failed if you stop trying. As long as you keep trying, you can't say you failed. You just haven't found the answer yet. Remember that success is definitely moving from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. You've probably heard that many times before. But I do often feel as though life is like navigating your way through a maze. You know, you do often come across dead ends, and it's your determination and strong work ethic, responsibility for your own actions that will help navigate your way to the center. Remember, once you get to the center, you've then got to find your way back out again. So the arrival of the second curveball is the unexpected, but this is where it's unexpected, but maybe has potential. So where you can sort of get something for something, you know, somebody wants something, but they want something in return. And we've had lots of these, you know, over the years where, you know, I'll get a call at Little Venice Cake Company. It could be another brand saying, oh, we're looking to do a collaboration, or we're looking to do something. And it's not something you've thought about or thought or considered or thought, well, how could that work, or could that work? But it's where you realize that it's the, you know, trading commodities for the benefit of both brands. And we've had some wonderful ones over the years. You know, I've worked with the likes of Myla lingerie, the Laurent Perrier champagne, with Mont Blanc, you know, beautiful penmanship, Charlotte Olympia shoes, and even Chanel, where we've had the opportunity to trade commodities. And I tell you, it's not bad being paid in bras and knickers and champagne and Chanel for cake. And it's looking at those trade opportunities with your businesses that can bring about some wonderful collaborations that also builds your network. A word of caution though, because, you know, many times you may hear people say, oh, this will be great for PR. And, you know, sometimes I hear, great for PR, does that actually mean they want a freebie? And you do have to ask yourself, are you running a charity or a business? Don't forget to thank and bank for these opportunities, and always ask yourself, you know, are we getting exposure for this? Are we getting paid for this? And can we include it in our own PR and marketing? And then the arrival of the third curveball, which is very much the surprise positive one. And I love this one because it has a positive impact. It's how rather than if you're going to take this curveball and opportunity, and how you're going to maximize its opportunity. It will add long-term effect and impact on your business, and you know, gives you the opportunity to really sort of, you know, sing about it and shout about it. I've had some wonderful ones along the years, and I think the nicest came when I was doing two I'll tell you about. David Beckham's birthday cake. So I was sitting down with my American publishers in the studio, and we were just about to talk about how we were going to publicize my book. And I had a phone call, and it was from a event planner who was organizing David Beckham's 30th birthday cake in Madrid. And he said, Mitch, this was Friday lunchtime, 12 o'clock, Mitch, can you have this very specific cake for David Beckham's 30th birthday made, baked, decorated, and transported to Madrid by first thing Monday? That's a pretty big curveball. That's a pretty big bludger. And it meant that I had to rearrange my entire, I said, and I remember going upstairs, putting a hunk of chocolate cake down in front of my publicist, saying, can you just give me 10 minutes? I need to make some phone calls, and just think. I was responding. And I went away and I thought about what needed to be done, what I could create, how I could make it, how I could do it, what needed to be organized in order for this to carry off. And I have to say, on the Monday morning, having literally worked through the weekend and having had wedding cakes going out all weekend, I delivered, hand transported a very specific, which I can't tell you about because I signed a confidentiality agreement in English and in Spanish, celebration cake for David Beckham's 30th birthday cake that was beautifully decorated, delivered to Madrid for his birthday. So that's a pretty lovely one. And another one was when I was about to start working on my fourth book. And I had everyone arrive in the studio, and it was sort of chaos, and we were moving the rooms around to try and do the shooting. And I had a letter, and I hadn't opened this letter. It had arrived the day before, and I saw it had on it, you know, sort of official document, official marks. And I thought, you know, I'll open it then. I thought it was probably a tax bill of some sort. But when I opened it up, it was a letter saying, or informing me that the Prime Minister had written to say that he was intending to put my name forward to receive an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. Now, there are genuinely very few times in your life when you are completely bowled over and surprised positively. That was one of them. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what an amazing, wonderful, fantastic curveball to suddenly come out from left field. So that was lovely, really lovely, and such an honour. And I would say that, you know, it doesn't come, other similar scenarios when you get a call in the morning saying, can you be on Radio 2 this afternoon, bring some cakes in and share them with Claudia and talk about your new book? And you think, there's a curveball. So take the opportunities of the positive ones. Remember, I'll leave this with last thoughts with you, and then we can take some questions, is don't make a drama out of a crisis, but don't let a crisis go to waste. I hope that I haven't done that today. I hope I've taken the opportunity that's been given me to showcase some of the tips and practical advice that I've bring into my daily life to ensure that I strive to be a positive person, to look for the good in every day, to make the most of every day, and to give you some small practical advice that will hopefully help in some way to help you become better versions of yourselves today and tomorrow moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mitch. That was filled with some great advice for our audience. Let's take a look at some of the questions we've had from the live chat. The first one has come through anonymous. What has this crisis taught you about how you will do things differently when you come out the other side?
Oh, well, that is a good question. What will I do differently? Well, I'm going to make hollandaise sauce from scratch. That's for sure. It's, you know, I've found that certainly had more time for myself to sort of think about things that I would necessarily not thought I didn't have time to do beforehand. I've invested time in. So I've learned more about opera. So I feel more cultured and more empowered. I've, yes, definitely made hollandaise sauce from scratch. I think I'm going to always ensure that I pay my accountant on time, because they have worked wonders during this furlough process. And definitely I am going to tip my hairdresser far more generously in the future.
Fantastic. The next one is from Danny. What is your absolute career highlight?
Oof. My career highlight. There have been, Danny, thank you for the question. There have been so many wonderful opportunities that we've had. I would say that certainly going to Buckingham Palace to receive my MBE, because it's an accreditation that all the hard work and effort and you know, blood, sweat and tears that you've put in have somehow been recognised, that you are, you know, you recognised for what you do, and appreciated for it, and you know, that nobody can take it away from you. So that's amazingly special. Seeing 7 books published, or having 7 books published, you know, that's pretty wonderful. And hearing the comments back from people that, you know, when you hear from people that you've inspired them, or they've chosen their career because of you, or you've helped me because, or I've learnt so much from you, you know, that's always a really enjoyable thing. Having our china on sale in John Lewis, signing the lease to have a brand new gorgeous atelier as part of the Atlantis the Royal in Dubai, that's pretty amazing. I was due to be working on a cake for the Queen's birthday party in Dubai in April this year. It's been postponed. It's still going to happen, but so many, you know, I'm very fortunate, yes, but also it's come with a lot of hard work. But it's striving, as I've said right from the start, is to always do the right things to influence the right things happening. Thank you, Danny.
Next one has come through anonymous. If you were starting fresh today in the current environment, how would you do it?
Oof. Well, you see, thank you for that question, because do you know what? I feel as though today is a lot tougher than when I was first starting out. When I was first starting out, we didn't have, you know, in those days, we didn't have all the practical tools, advice, and sort of social media. You know, I think when I first started out, I'm not sure we even had computers. I think emails were only just coming into the fore, you know, so it was a lot of sort of trekking out on the roads, going and meeting and greeting and seeing people. And I would definitely say that, you know, don't underestimate the power of face-to-face communication, building your network of key people that you work with, who you can take support from and have as your business contacts that you know you can always rely on and report to moving forward. I would say definitely identify your brand values early on, understand what your IP is, your international intellectual property, and your USP, your unique selling point. What is it that you do really well? And if you can identify what that is, do it really well so that nobody can touch you. Try and get other people to blow your trumpet. I know that sounds what she's saying, but you know, by getting sort of Pierce Brosnan to say, or not getting him, but Pierce Brosnan offered, he came back to me. We've made lots of cakes for Pierce and his family. They have been wonderful supporters over the years since I made his wedding cake 18 years ago. And he says, you know, I'm the Mick, see what I did there? Michelangelo of cakes, which is lovely. And for people to say such lovely things about you for the work that you do. And it's never taking situations for granted or pushing the boundaries, always being respectful of the people that you're working with.
The next one is from Adam. How have you kept team morale up during this time?
Oof, you know, we work with cake, so morale's always pretty high because there's always cake on offer. Good music certainly helps, and taking work and life, you know, seriously, but not taking yourself always so seriously. Taking time to laugh and find the fun in things, to keep a sense of humor, I think has been really important. But having those little carrots in of a day and doing those different things that can help you feel as though you're all bonding together and sharing. And I think what for us is actually what's happening in our local neighborhood. You know, our neighbors have been much more friendly. Not that they weren't friendly before, but openly more friendly. I think the distancing has actually brought us closer together. And I think that probably is true for a lot of people.
The next one, what has been your favorite cake in your career?
Oh, come on. You can't ask me to choose, like choosing between my children. Favorite cake in my career. Well, obviously I made my own wedding cake, not obviously, but I made my own wedding cake. And on the day that my husband and I were married, we were married at Claridge's. There was another wedding happening at Claridge's on the same day, and I made her wedding cake too. So I always maintain that my husband didn't even let me have a day off on our wedding day. But you know, making your own wedding cake is pretty special, and the cakes I've made for my boys. But certainly, Pierce Brosnan's wedding cake will always go down as a highlight, because that was 6 tiers of gorgeous carrot cake that were hand decorated and lustered. And for every tier that we made, I made a separate tier that we transported to Ireland in case any of the tiers were damaged. And it meant that I had a spare, because Keeley had said, you know, if I have a great man, great dress, great cake, nothing else matters. Well, I figured she'd have a lovely dress, and I knew she was having a great man, and she was marrying Pierce Brosnan. So the cake fell firmly on my shoulders, and I'm happy to say that all tiers of carrot cake were delivered, and we made christening cakes and everything else for the boys as well. So that was particularly special, because it was one of my very first sort of more high profile clients. And the other one would probably be the Queen Elizabeth diamond wedding cake that we delivered as a gift to Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip, that went to Buckingham Palace. And the Queen took the top tier with her to Sandringham to enjoy for Christmas. And that was a lovely rich fruit cake, where I took details of the design that the Queen had worn on her bridal gown and recreated that in icing on her wedding cake, her diamond wedding anniversary cake. So that was pretty special.
The next one, what advice do you give to people who are procrastinators?
Oh gosh, I know it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're procrastinating it, and it's start. Just make the decision. Just say to yourself, okay, just start small. So today, what's my to-do list today? And write the list and just do it. Don't waste emotional energy thinking about doing it. Just start by doing it. And it's the little things. You know, and all areas of life. Does the bin need emptying? Empty the bin. Does the light bulb need changing? Change the light. And it means that you're always on the go initially, but it then becomes second nature. And you tend to find that you become a much more organized person when you don't procrastinate, and it just makes you feel more cleansed and purged and on the ball and able to cope and ahead of the curve and ready to go.
The next one, what's the mood in your industry and how do you keep in touch?
Oh, thank you. The mood in the industry. Do you know what? The cake and baking world is a wonderful community. You know, I've had emails and group social media contact and things through the industry, and we're all incredibly supportive of one another. You know, baking, it's kind of up and down, because all those sort of social events haven't been able to happen yet. People have been baking at home, and it's obviously trying to get hold of the bread. You know, I'm keeping in touch with all the wonderful many of the bakers at the Scottish bakers who I work with, and hearing their stories. And I actually had a call from, you know, one of the millers up in Scotland, who mills flour that goes out to the whole Scottish baking industry. And he contacted me direct to say, have you got some flour? And I had to say, well, no, I can't go. He said, leave it with me. And, you know, in spite of everything else, making sure these huge bakeries were all getting as much flour as they needed to ensure that they had everything, he still took time out to think about me, to get me some flour that I could actually create a video that I could share with other people to show and bring in the joy of baking. So I think that the community spirit, you know, I also work with the team over at Satin Ice in America for their range of icings and buttercreams. And I was able to put a little video together that they've sent out to their community, which it very much is, to sort of show that we are all in this together. And there is a lot of, you know, a lot of support, and you're definitely not alone.
The next question has come from Jane. Do you feel that in a strange way, entrepreneurs needed this forced pause and reset? Do you think we'll naturally have a slightly slower, more considered pace than before when normality returns?
Thank you, Jean. That's a great question. And I would say the answer to that is most definitely yes. And I don't think it's restricted just to entrepreneurs. I think that, you know, everybody, whilst I wouldn't say it's been a necessary or, you know, and I certainly not ideal, but the pause that's come has kind of, I think it's given everybody the opportunity to that after the initial shock, it's, okay, let's just take a moment to internally reflect and strip out all the unnecessary and realize that a lot of what we had was chaff, and let's find the wheat to ensure that when we come back stronger, we come back more focused, we come back more armed and capable to see and understand what we truly need and where we truly want to go. Because, you know, you tend to find a lot of time that you're running around doing things you think you ought to be doing, when actually you strip it back, you think, okay, what's actually essential and what's actually going to make an improvement, and where can I go with that? So I think definitely don't let this crisis go to waste, and make sure that you can, or try and find a way to ensure that you have got those tools ready for you, so that your ducks are in a row, so that when we come through this, we do come through leaner, meaner, and fighting fitter.
Amazing. Thank you, Mitch. There's been some lovely comments coming through on the chat saying that so much useful information, gems of experience, all very helpful and inspiring. Do you have any final words before we finish today?
I would say, you know, take this opportunity to come out of your curveball emboldened. Make sure that you've taken time to smell the roses, to engage with those and keep in touch with those who you truly value. Value yourself first and foremost, and realize that time will pass, and, you know, you want to come out of this certainly a better version of yourself than the one that came into it.
Mitch, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar today. I'm sure our audience will agree that was a great session. I have included Mitch's LinkedIn and Twitter profiles, so if you'd like to connect with her, or if you have any questions, then I'm sure she won't mind you getting in touch. I have also included a link to Little Venice Cake Company, so if you'd like to find out more or take a look at Mitch's books, you can do there as well. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's webinar, we'll be sending out a replay coming at 4:30 p.m. today on our website at fresh@businessthinking.haysummit.com or on our social media channels. Our next webinar in the Lockdown Learning for Business series takes place on Thursday, the 21st of May, with Phil Allegan, and he'll be discussing the different ways in which HMRC are helping businesses during COVID-19. If you haven't already, you can register for this webinar by using the link in the comments. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Mich.